Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and I'm the host of Tech Startup Stories. This podcast is really designed to share the unique and challenging journeys of all the people that are building small startups to scale-ups in the tech space. My background? Initially, I was in sales, and then I moved into marketing, and I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing tech companies. But my passion is really startups. And that led me back to helping tech startups set up their marketing and go-to-market functions where the budgets are tight and the resources are few and far between. So let's get into this week's podcast. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to meet Jaibir Nihal Singh today, who is a co-founder of an organization called TraqCheck. This is really our first time meeting, but we have a mutual connection because you know Adi Jain, don't you, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I know Addy pretty well, and I got a chance to hear the podcast, and it was super interesting.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining the show today. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about TraqCheck?
But firstly, thank you for having me. TraqCheck is essentially a software company. We help companies background check new joiners, candidates, or even sometimes existing employees with the help of AI and machine learning. So everything from their identity to their past education records, employment records, criminal history, social media history, psychometric history, or psychometric scan, we kind of give the client a yes or a no in terms of a report. And we don't tell them whether they should hire them or they should not hire them, but we give them a holistic report about the candidate, and then we leave the decision of hiring up to the clients.
Okay. So I'm guessing that's super important in very specific industries.
Definitely. So we see that banking and finance is super important because when someone's handling money, it's the most important to make sure that their background check. Also in hospitality sectors, in gig economy sectors, a lot of taxi drivers, that's really important for them to be background checked. Uh, Nurses, doctors, something to do with medicine. From what I'm seeing is that initially background checks was viewed as a compliance check, but now I'm seeing it as people are understanding the importance of having someone verified, because a lot of the times people lie about their qualifications, and sometimes they're hiding something in terms of a criminal case, which can really be detrimental in the long run for the organization.
Interesting. I mean, I've had background checks done on me years ago, especially if you work in cybersecurity. I'm sure any kind of listeners would have experienced a similar thing. Big companies do it as well. But it's been around for quite a while. I think my first background check was probably about 2012, maybe even earlier than that. But what I do remember of that time, apart from a candidate perspective, having to spend a couple of hours filling out my life story on some portal, but it took ages to come back. And I seem to remember that, sort of sitting there hoping that they weren't going to uncover some random stuff that had been made up. But what's changed now? Why is this still really important? And what are you guys doing to change the industry?
Super interesting because when we finished college, me and my co-founders were studying together in Los Angeles. And when we came back to India during the pandemic, we wanted to build something of our own. And we, tried to do research about every single industry, and everyone was launching something in fintech, maybe a food delivery app. They were launching, a consumer brand, a sneaker brand, a clothing brand, and so on and so forth. And my sister launched a successful fitness brand as well. So everyone around us was like launching these really cool things, but there was so much competition in them, right? And we wanted to build in a space where there's not much competition, the chances of success are higher, when you build in a space where there's not too many people building. And as you rightly said, background checks have been around for decades, I think 40, 50 years. And some of the leading companies today are NASDAQ listed companies in the States. And, these companies have been around since the 60s and 70s. But surprisingly, the process hasn't changed. Um, it's a very manual, very slow, super tedious for candidates and companies. As you said, if you've gone through a background check, especially in 2012, it's a lot of manual work back and forth, the background check company reaching out to you via phone, via email. You have to send your documents there, etc. We found a way to use technology to automate a lot of that process, both for the hiring managers and the candidate. So I'll give you an example. There are two ways to use TraqCheck. One is our dashboard product, where an HR or a hiring manager can put the name of the candidate they're hiring and fill some information and press run check. And then an email goes to the candidate where the candidate, it's like maybe it takes 20 seconds or 40 seconds to really tell, maybe a minute where they upload some stuff and then the check starts. And the other way to use us is we can directly integrate with any HR platform or ATS and pull out the information from there of the candidate, do the background check, and push back the results on the ATS or the HR system. So sometimes the candidate doesn't even need to be involved in the background check process. Of course, the consent is required, but other than that, it doesn't require much effort. Because of this, traditionally, background checks would take around 20 to 25 days. After using TraqCheck, it takes from a few minutes to sometimes a few days. But we've got, turnaround times for companies from 25 days on average to a day or two on average, with a lot of the checks finishing instantly, like a criminal check or an identity check or a right to work check or even an employment check. So companies don't have to wait for 25 days to get a verification. Now they can do it instantly with us. So we just used technology and automation to try to automate a lot of the tasks that a company would manually do for a background check process. To put that in perspective, um, let's say these leading background check companies, they have thousands and thousands of people working for them in their operations department that actually carry out the background checks. We actually don't follow that model. Most of the work that's been done by humans in these traditional companies, TraqCheck does using AI agents and automations. So we will, like, even if we reach their scale, we will never have so many people, because the whole process has now changed.
So, I mean, to go through all of that and to start with a point where you and your co-founders were kind of figuring out what to do. And you mentioned that you guys were in LA to start with and then came back during lockdown. What was the process that you went through? First of all, why did you guys come together to become the sort of founding team? Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's a pretty interesting story. We were, I think it was March of 2020, right before the pandemic hit, and we all were supposed to graduate in May. And we all had jobs lined up, pretty decent jobs in Los Angeles, and that's why we had gone there to study so we can all get good positions. And the pandemic hit, and we had to leave because there was a problem with the visa situation, and countries were shutting their borders, and it was just all over the place. So pretty much all the international students went back home. And we realized that, wait, if we go back home, then everything we worked for these past 4 years is pretty much finished, because God knows when the country will reopen. God knows if these jobs still exist. There was just so much uncertainty back in the market and in the world, rightly so, back then. And three of us just happened to get talking because we were friends. And we said, okay, now that we don't have these jobs to look forward to, might as well build something, right, ourselves. If we can't get a job, let's just create jobs for ourselves. And my co-founder Rishabh was working. Actually, he had interned in this background check company startup called Checker in Los Angeles. And Checker went on to become this multi-billion-dollar background check company that disrupted a lot of the traditional companies in America. So that's how we kind of got the idea of background checks. And then when we came back to India, we did our research, and yeah, it was the same as we expected. These traditional background check companies, and there was no tech, no automations. And I think a large reason for that is background checks doesn't sound like a very sexy business. It sounds like a mundane, boring business. But I got this advice from someone, and they said that the real money is made in boring businesses, because there are not many passionate people competing in a boring business. Whereas if you want to open a restaurant, or you want to open a clothing brand, you're competing with people that are super passionate about cooking, or art. And when you're competing with passionate people, uh, everyone's just working 5 times as 5 times harder than the other person. But when you start something in a more not a very exciting uh you know business, there's not much competition. And that's exactly what we saw, is that India being such a big country, there were maybe three companies that were doing background check. Out of those three companies, they pretty much all of them had no tech and no automation. So we said this is an open space for us to compete, and we started building the product. It was really naive to think so that we could build a good product very fast and launch it, because it took us almost a year and a half to build anything. What we didn't realize is that India is actually the hardest market in the world to build a background verification product, because there are 30 plus languages in this country. Data is stored in different states, in different languages. How do we convert that into English? How do we, show results in the candidate, like to the clients? Um, you know, Clients in South India, they don't speak Hindi. It's just, it's a very tough problem to solve. Data is very unstructured. There's no standardized way of writing an address. It was just a really difficult situation, and it took us around a year and a half to build a product. And even after we built it, we were these 22, 23-year-old, um, you know, uh, fresh out of college kids that were going to like companies like the Big Four and saying, "We have a background check product. Do you want to use it?" And they were like, "You're 23. You built a background check product that, it just doesn't add up." And we actually built such a good product that people, like, when we would pitch it, people won't believe it. Like in India, a criminal check would take 30 to 40 days. We built a product that would take maybe 5 seconds to do a criminal check, which is, if you think about the scale of that, there are 1.4 billion people in India. There are tens, hundreds of millions of court records, similar names, um, you know, different languages. And yet we were able to scan all that data, create a database, and find criminal cases on individuals. So it was this too good to be true product. And that was the hard part. We thought the hard part was building the product, which it was, but then selling it was even harder, because people just didn't believe that it was that good. Because it just sounded so crazy that, if a company takes 40 days and the government of India takes weeks to do a criminal check, how did you three, 23-year-olds build something that takes 5 seconds to do a criminal check? And I think that's how we really got the ball rolling, by building, by solving such a big problem.
Wow, there's so much to unpack in that. Firstly, I think it's funny because you sort of said about, boring businesses make lots of money. And I don't think this is boring. I think this is really interesting. And, I think for any of our listeners, this is solving massive problems, especially, when you're hiring lots of people globally, remote workers, even if they're not remote, knowing that people are who they say they are and that they don't have skeletons in their closet is key. So you've mentioned that you've gone through a really incredible journey of solving so many problems and tackling those issues. And one of the biggest challenges is you create this amazing product, and then how do you go out and convince people that you guys are serious and that you've created something incredible? Um, with there's three of you, correct?
Yeah.
With the three of you, what are your kind of key roles as the kind of founders of the business? Who's kind of taking ownership of the product? Who's taking ownership of the go to market? How are you dividing and conquering the business?
So Rishabh is the technical co-founder. He is the one looking after engineering, infrastructure, and product. Arman, my other co-founder, is more looking after operations and making sure that we are able to deliver on the products, because there still is a 20% human intervention. So we've kind of cut human intervention down from 100% to around 20%, and then 80% is still it is now being done by automations and tech. And I look after business, global expansion. We just opened our office in London, which I'm excited to tell you about, and everything fundraising. That's pretty much my domain. So new business and fundraising.
And how have you grown as individuals in your relationships? Because you started as friends, and you've kind of set on this journey together, and you've built this business. You're still building. How has your relationships kind of evolved? How are you guys connecting together?
I think we feel really proud that we were just three three young guys who wanted to build something, and we thought that we could you know have make an impact and have these great clients and really do help people background check, or help companies background check candidates, and help candidates also get jobs with a clean background check report. And it's a very proud feeling that we've done nearly 1 million background checks now.
Wow.
We have around 250 clients such as Grant Thornton, Target, some of India's biggest banks, IndusInd Bank, some of the biggest finance companies in India, Bajaj Capital, some of the biggest startups in India like Lenskart and Yatra.com. So it's surreal to think that uh, a silly idea in that we had while we all were in Los Angeles, and we've actually done something with it, and we have around 75 people working for us now, an office in Delhi, an office in London. So I think we all are really proud, and we all have watched each other grow, as not only as business partners but as individuals. I feel like we all know so much more than we did when we started on this journey 5 years back, and it was a mix of reality, a reality check on how tough startups are, and also, yeah, we look back and we're proud of the impact we've created. And what's exciting is that we're just scratching the surface, because India's a very small, you know, um, part of the entire world economy, and we just launched in the UK. We have entire Europe to take over, and exciting times ahead. Sometimes I just sit at night and I think that we pulled it off. We had this idea, and now we have this full-fledged business across two continents. So yeah, it's a combination of hard work and just not giving up.
Wonderful. And you mentioned, I mean, your journey, although it sounds idyllic, you've had challenges. You've solved a lot of problems, and it sounds like India was actually a really great place to start, given the issues and language challenges, and gathering that information. How did you overcome the challenges of your age or perception that you were kind of three young guys that weren't credible to these massive companies? What was your approach to kind of break through that?
Definitely. When when you think of young people starting a startup, it's more consumer faced and consumer facing. You start a delivery app or you start something which you will sell to consumers. But when you at 22 or 23, I was 22 actually when we launched, when we started working on TraqCheck. When your clients are enterprises, and not just any enterprises, the largest enterprises in the world, we're talking about Grant Thornton and companies like Target. These are multi-billion dollar, if not $100 billion plus companies. Convincing them is the toughest thing to do, because getting a meeting is hard enough. And then once you get a meeting, like, just the perception that you're so young and you're solving such a serious issue, it wasn't easy to do. But I think the best thing and the best way to overcome that is just let your product do the talking. And that's how we did it. I still remember the first client that changed the game for us was this company called Bajaj Capital, which is one of India's largest finance companies. And I remember personally, we were sitting in their office with their head HR, and we somehow managed to get a 20-minute meeting. And they were like, we already have a background check partner, we're not looking for anything, thank you for coming, etc. And I said, can we do a live check? And they were like, what do you mean? I said, how many employees do you have? And I said, we have around, I asked how many employees they have, and they said, we have around 7,000 employees. And I said, what if we do a live criminal check on all your 7,000 employees right in front of you? And they said, how will you do that? It'll take you weeks to do that. And I said, no, we need 25 seconds to do 7,500 checks. And so we did a quick integration, in the next hour or so with their HR system, and we ran uh, almost 7,500 criminal checks. Took us maybe 7 or 8 seconds to complete, and they were shocked. And these were pre-cleared candidates from that were already background checked, and we found a lot of discrepancies. Uh, you know, and they were shocked that how did you find this? These guys were already checked, and we were like, that's the power of our tool, that we don't like it just doesn't miss anything. Because traditionally, how someone would do a background check in India is that you have access to all the data, but there are 200 million records, and if you have, let's say, you have someone's name, you can press Command F and see tens of thousands of names, but you're going to miss something if you're going to do it manually. And that's what these companies are doing. And we use automations to do that instantly. And that was how we got the ball rolling, that Bajaj Capital was so pleasantly surprised that we could do this, that we walked out with I think it was a six-figure contract then and there. And that's how the ball got rolling. And they've been our client for almost 5 years now. And we've really streamlined the entire process. And word of mouth was really strong after that. It took us maybe 6 to 9 months to convince to get a client like that. And then 6 months after that, we already had 10 other clients like that, because the HR community is a very tight knit community. And if you use something really cool, you tell your friends who are in the same field that we just use this, and we did in 5 seconds we could background check 5,000 people. You should use this too. And um, a product the product spoke for itself. And the same with any good product. The reason ChatGPT screamed scaled so well is because it was so cool that we told our friends about it, our family about it. I still remember coming home and telling my dad to use ChatGPT because it was just such a cool product. So same thing happened with us, with like enterprises, that they were just telling other companies that you should use this company. It's really cool. And I think that's how the scale happened. But it was super difficult getting and convincing these large companies to use us, because again, it just you're competing with American Nasdaq listed company that has 4,000 employees and 50 offices in 50 different countries, and here you are, three guys with three laptops, and saying use us and not them. So yeah, that it's really difficult. But my only advice to anyone who's trying to overcome these challenges is just perfect your product. If it works well, it will scale, and they will tell their friends about it, and that's how it's going to scale.
Absolutely. So it seems persistence really worked for you, just knocking on those doors, trying to get that first initial meeting. Then you were able to really demonstrate in real time and solve a huge problem and show exactly how your product could add value to those people. And then you had that great opportunity of word of mouth and that community. And, when you find your advocates within your customer base, that can have a huge impact on growth. What an incredible story. I love to hear that. So, India, that was your starting point. Then how do you then scale globally? You've just opened an office in London, but and you've sort of, already told us you've got grand plans to take over Europe. What was your kind of approach to choosing London and Europe over perhaps, you know, your kind of homegrown experience in LA and going to the US perhaps first?
So TraqCheck scaled very organically, and we kind of left it to our clients to tell us where to go next, and I'll explain how. TraqCheck went from zero to $1 million in revenue without a sales team, without a single dollar spent on sales or marketing, because largely of word of mouth and just founder-led sales. And what we started to realize is that a lot of our clients were global companies, and a lot of them had offices globally. And a lot of our current customers had a lot of hiring in the UK and in Europe. They have a lot of hiring in the US as well. However, normally what companies would do is if they start in India, they would start in India and then scale to the UAE or scale to Singapore and Malaysia and these sort of countries. But we identified which are the three largest background verification markets in the world, and the answer was USA and China are similar. China is really tough to do because of obvious reasons, so we couldn't do China. So it was USA, UK, followed by India, which is the third largest market now. And we wanted to gradually work our way towards the US and not jump to the US first. US is a really expensive market to go to market. You have to really spend a lot of money to see some traction there. Just any good enterprise salesperson will cost you like three to $400,000 a year, because the companies that we are trying to sell to and the people that we are trying to sell to are companies like Apple and Microsoft and these sort of companies, because the hiring is large. And the people that can convince the CHROs and the head HRs of these companies are really, really, experienced enterprise sales hires. And these hires don't come cheap, right? Like they can even go up to $500,000 to $1 million a year, because these contracts that they can bring in are $5-10 million a year contracts, and US is just too expensive to go first, and that's why we thought that we proved ourselves in India. We are on track to becoming the biggest here in the next 2 years, and we wanted to climb our way, towards the US, and that's why we went to the UK first. Um, Also, it's an English-speaking country. It's easy for our team to expand there as well, and a lot of our clients have offices there, so it was a no-brainer.
Amazing. So let's talk about scaling up. So you guys were running the business yourselves, working super hard to kind of get the product built, get it out there. And then big celebration, you get your first mega client, you start to bring on more within 6 months. How did you go about then scaling up your team? What were your priorities? We know that, you've been very much a founder-led sales and marketing function. So what's been really important to you with hiring your own teams?
So as I said initially, all the sales was word of mouth and founder led. And a big reason for that is we were also bootstrapped for a long time. We bootstrapped for around 3.5 years, almost 4 years actually of our journey. We just raised a year back. And the reason for that is we were growing organically so well, and with high profitability. We had 20 to 30% profit, net profit margins for a startup that is unheard of. Startups are burning millions of dollars in cash, sometimes on a monthly basis as well, to get to a few $1 million uh, in top line. And we were just growing so organically and so well that we thought, let this ride out for as long as it can. And not raise money when you genuinely don't need to. And the thing with the Indian market is we kind of really captured a lot of the market without spending a single dollar. So it didn't really, make sense for us to raise because we were anyway on track to becoming one of the biggest in India. And the reason why we thought of raising is because we wanted to expand globally. And obviously, expanding globally comes with a lot of expenses, hires, office space, just market research, etc. And that's when we really decided that, okay, now we need to shift our perspective and we need to start hiring a great team. And that was the first, I would say, major hiring that we did. Of course, we had an operations team in India and people working in quality control, etc. But we hadn't made any business development hires until fairly recently. And when we look to hire, um, we never do we barely do job postings and the traditional hiring method, because I genuinely believe that the people that we want aren't looking for jobs. We have to go and convince them to come work for us, and that's how we've done pretty much all our hiring, especially in the UK. We've just made a few uh, first three hires. Really happy with the team in the UK. I had to find them myself and really convince them to come work for TraqCheck because they were in such established companies. Some had been working there for multiple years and had a very cushy job. But I had to sell. I had to sell them the vision that what we're doing is different. We're trying to flip the whole model on its head and really disrupt a traditional sleeping market. And that's how we go about hiring. We identify who we want and then we go after them because I'm gonna repeat what I said, but I think the people that we want are not looking for jobs. We have to go and convince them to convince them to work for us. So that's been the journey of hiring. And yeah, we're growing pretty fast now. We're growing our business development and sales team pretty fast.
So you yourself, you're spending a lot of time traveling. You spend most of your time in London, and then obviously you go back to India to meet with your co-founders on a regular basis. So you're a global team now, and everybody's spread out. Tell me a little bit about that.
We had three co-founders. We actually live all over the place. Rishabh, who handles engineering, lives in the States. He's never moved back
Right.
um, from the States. Arman and I were in India to set up the business, and Arman is based in India now, and I now have moved to London to expand, and I keep coming back and forth for business. So it's a global setup.
And then basically with the team spread out everywhere and you in London now for the most part, when do you get time for yourself, if any? Do you have any personal time, or are you just living and breathing the business?
I think as a founder, if you really want to make a change, the lines between work and just your personal time, they're blurred. But that's not how I look at it. It's not that I all I do is work. That's just not me because that's not healthy, especially mentally. And of course, the first few years, that's all we did. Because to really make something great, you have to really sacrifice a lot. But I don't see my work as a job now. I kind of see it as an extension of me. So in a way, I'm always working, but it never really feels like work because you're building something that you're proud of. So it doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter, if I'm out for dinner, if there's a call, I'm gonna step out and take it. And that's just how my mentality is, and how I would say our mentality is. But I'm not a proponent of just working all the time, and not having a good personal life. It has to be a good balance, but I think the balance for me is that I've kind of integrated my work into my personal life in a pretty seamless way, where it doesn't really I can still be with my loved ones and still open a laptop and do some work. It doesn't have to, I don't have to alienate myself and sit in a corner and do my work. So I think that's a good balance that I found for myself. But initially, it was I would say the first few years, it's a lot of sacrifice, and I assume every successful founder you speak to tells you the same thing, that you have to live and breathe your business, because there's someone else who's trying to build it as well, and you just to win, you have to put in the work and put in the hours.
Indeed, indeed. So, what's the future look like for TraqCheck then?
Future is that we are we are on track to become the largest background check company in India within the next few years, and we want to do the same in the UK within the next few years. We just launched a few months back. We're already seeing some great traction, signing some big contracts. We want to help companies background check their candidates fast, with lightning fast speed at half the cost, and that's the plan, is to really conquer the European market as well, and then set our sights towards the states, which is the biggest market, and everyone knows that.
Indeed, indeed. So, with that in mind, you've already kind of given us a little bit of advice for founders starting out. What do you think have been the biggest lessons for you as a team and you personally in this journey so far?
Um, First is, do your research before you choose which industry you want to go into. It's really hard to win in an industry where there are millions of people competing. So I would say find an industry that doesn't have a lot of players. That's number one. Two is, it takes time. A lot of it, a lot of times you think that it's going to happen in a few months or 6 months or even a year. I think it takes at least a few years of consistency to become successful in anything in life, not just in startups. And uh, I I can't even begin to tell you how many times we almost shut shop when it just wasn't working, and thank God we didn't. So just don't give up. And I think the most important is, surround yourself with a good team, and don't micromanage, because that's something that can kill a business as well. A lot of the times, a founder is very close to his or her business and wants to do everything, and there comes a time when you have to scale and you have to trust people to do their jobs as well. Because in the early stages, you're doing everything from HR to accounting to selling to product, but there comes a time where you have to hire the right people to take care of their departments, and you have to kind of give them that vision. So don't micromanage, and yeah, just have fun, because if you don't have fun, you're gonna burn out.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I've really loved your story. I'm excited to watch TraqCheck grow, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share, or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.